This is Math Lesson 30, Session 2, Develop Evaluating Expressions. The learning targets today are I can use parentheses, brackets, or braces in numerical expressions and evaluate expressions with these symbols. Also, I can write simple expressions that record calculations with numbers and interpret numerical expressions without evaluating them. That means figuring out what they mean without solving. To start today, evaluate the expression. That's another way of saying, please solve. 24 minus 2 plus 2. How could you use parentheses to change the value of the expression to 20? Pause, solve, press play. All right, looking at our order of operations, we don't have parentheses or exponents. Next would be multiply or divide. We don't have that either. And last, we have add or subtract, whichever comes first. So looking at our problem, we have 24 minus 2 comes before 2 plus 2. So we're going to solve this first. 24 minus 2 is 22. And then we're going to add our 2. 22 plus 2 equals 24. But it's asking, how can you use parentheses to change the value of the expression to 20? Anything inside of parentheses we have to do first. So if I put parentheses around the second part of this problem, so now that becomes the first thing that we do. 2 plus 2 equals 4. And then we take 24 minus 4, and that gives us our value of 20. Try it is at the top of page 629 in your workbook. There are 32 people on a field trip to the aquarium. This includes 8 adults. The expression 6 times 32 minus 8 represents the cost in dollars to buy the students, but not the 8 adults, a $6 souvenir poster. What is the total cost of the posters? Okay, so let's look at our information. There are 32 people, which includes 8 adults, and they are going to buy the students, but not the adults. Buy the students, but not the 8 adults, a $6 souvenir poster. So we're going to have to figure out how many students there are, and then figure out how much it costs to buy each of those students a souvenir poster. What we need to figure out is, what is the total cost of the posters? Pause and find your answer, and then press play. All right, so the expression 6 times 32 minus 8, if I write that down here, 6 times 32 minus 8. We have 32 minus 8 in parentheses because this represents how many students there are. If there are 32 people altogether and 8 adults, we can take 32 minus 8 to find out how many students there are. So 32 minus 8 is 24 students. And each of them gets a $6 souvenir poster. So we can take our $6 times 24 students, and that is going to give us $144. Picture it. You can use a picture to help understand how the expression represents the cost. Think about what the posters for everyone and the posters for students only would look like. Each poster costs $6. So there are 32 $6 altogether. But then there are 8 adults, so they're taking away, they crossed out these 8 because the adults aren't getting the posters. So if we have 32, there's 32 boxes in all, minus 8, which is taking out the adults, crossing those 8 out. That represents how many people are actually getting the $6 posters. And then we multiply that number by 6 to figure out how much we spent on those posters. You can use words to help understand how the expression represents the cost. 6 equals the cost times, which means that you're repeating that over and over again. It's all the same number, times the difference between the total number of people, which is 32, and the number of adults. We're taking those 8 adults out of our total. Connect it. Using the order of operations, what are the steps in evaluating 6 times 32 minus 8? What is the total cost of the posters? Subtract the numbers in parentheses first. 32 minus 8. 32 minus 8 equals 24. Then we multiply 6 times 24. 6 times 24 equals 144. Therefore, the posters cost $144. Number 2. Suppose you omit the parentheses. Omit is a word that means take out. Take out the parentheses from the expression for the total cost of the posters. What is the value of the expression 6 times 32 minus 8? Explain why the grouping symbols are needed for this problem. So if we have this without the parentheses, we would be doing 6 times 32 first and then subtracting 8. And what we would get there is 184. Doing the operations in a different order gives a different value. Without the grouping symbols, the multiplication is done before the subtraction. This would mean finding the cost of 32 posters and then subtracting 8. It's like subtracting $8. It does not make sense in the context of the problem. Number 3. Morgan says you can evaluate 6 times 32 minus 8 using 3 steps. Multiply 32 by 6, multiply 8 by 6, then subtract the two products. Why does Morgan's method work? So what they're looking at is 6 times 32. And doing that first, and then doing 6 times 8 and subtracting those two totals. So what we would get is 6 times 32 is 192 minus 6 times 8, which is 48. And when we subtract those two amounts, we get 144, which was our correct amount. Now, why does this work? Morgan found the cost of buying a poster for everyone, and then she subtracted the cost of buying the posters for the adults. So 6 times 32 is buying a poster for all of the people, adults included. And then she found how much it was to buy posters for the adults and subtracted that amount from the total. Number 4. Suppose the group also pays $75 for admission to the aquarium and that the cost for posters is $4 instead of $6. The expression that represents the total cost would be 75 plus 4 times 32 minus 8. Evaluate the expression explaining each of your steps. All right, we would do the 32 minus 8 first, and that gives us 24. Okay, so our expression would look like this now. Everything else stays the same except for the part that we just solved. 75 plus 4 times 24. Now looking at our order of operations, we have add and we have multiply. And in PEMDAS, multiply comes first. So 4 times 24 equals 96. And we keep this part the same, 75 plus 96. And that is going to give us $171. Reflect. Look back at your try it, strategies by classmates, and picture it and model it. Which models or strategies do you like best for evaluating expressions with grouping symbols? Explain. Make sure you pause the video so you can write down your response. Number 6, at the top of page 632. Evaluate 1/3 times 8 minus 5 plus 9. Show your work. Please pause so that you can do your work and then check your answer. Now, these are called braces, and they work exactly the same as parentheses. So in this problem, we're going to do what's inside the braces first. 8 minus 5, which is 3. So if we keep everything else exactly the same except for the part that we solved, we have 1/3 times 3 plus 9. Now thinking about our order of operations, PEMDAS, we have multiply or add, and the multiply part comes first. 1/3 times 3 is 1/3 of 3, so we can take 3 divided into thirds. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and then we only have 1 plus 9 left, which equals 10. Number 7. Jake used the order of operations to evaluate the expression 9 plus 8 minus 4 times 3 minus 2. He says that the solution is 3. Natalie changes the location of the parentheses so that the expression reads 9 plus 8 minus 4 times 3 minus 2. Evaluate Natalie's expression. Show your work. Please pause to solve and then press play. So we have parentheses here. Parentheses always come first. 3 minus 2 is 1, and then everything else is going to stay exactly the same, except for the part we just solved. Minus 4 times, there we go. All right, thinking about PEMDAS, we have add, subtract, or multiply, and in PEMDAS, multiply comes first. So 4 times 1 equals 4. Keep everything else the same. 9 plus 8 minus. All right, and we have add and subtract. Add and subtract go together. It just depends on which one you see first in the problem. So 9 plus 8 is the one that we see first. We're going to solve that to get 17 minus 4. And 17 minus 4 equals 13. Number 8. The numerical expression 1/4 times 7 times 6 plus 2 minus 5 is evaluated as shown. Step 1, 1/4 times 7 times 8 minus 5. Step 2, 1/4 times 56 minus 5. Step 3, 14 minus 5. Step 4, the answer is 9. In which step does a mistake first appear? So the answer isn't actually 9. There is an error. See if you can spot the error, press pause, and explain your work. All right, so looking at this, we have 1/4 times 7 times 6 plus 2 minus 5. So we're going to be looking at these parentheses first. And in our order of operations, PEMDAS, multiply comes before add. So we should be doing 7 times 6 first. But when we look at this, we have 7 times 8, which means that what they did was the 6 plus 2 first. They added before they multiplied, which is the no-no. So step 1 is where the mistake is. They should have multiplied 7 times 6 first before adding 6 plus 2. Okay, your assignment for session 2 is pages 633 and 634 in your math books. I will see you later for session 3.